Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this fourth session of the year in our Crisis Coach 2018 webinar series. Our moderator today is Bill Baker. If you have any questions, Bill Baker is in the background, and he is moderating any questions or the chat area. And if you'd like to use the GoToWebinar widget sort of dashboardy thingy on the right-hand side of your screen, you can use the chat area to communicate with us through the session. If we don't get to your questions by the end of the session, we will certainly respond to you afterward, and a recording will be made available. Today we're going to be talking about prevention before escalation, and that really is about today specifically school and/or workplace violence and identifying behaviors of concern before they escalate into significant issues. During this session and at any time, we invite you to engage with us on social media. We can be reached at Firestorm Soul on Twitter, at Firestorm Solutions on Facebook. We are continuity experts on YouTube and in the world, and we are Firestorm Solutions on LinkedIn. You can also reach us by using the hashtag on any social media application of Crisis Coach, and we'll see that message and get back to you. We also invite you to connect with us on our website at firestorm.com through our contact list. And you can certainly reach out to us at webinars@firestorm.com. Next, our attorneys really enjoy it if I tell you that this exercise is not complete without accompanying oral comments and discussion. Any work product provided by Firestorm should be read in conjunction with all guidance given by national, regional, local authorities, as well as your organization's personal counsel. Moreover, the information given and comments made in this webinar should not be interpreted as legal advice or legal opinion. Once again, thank you for joining us today. You can reach us at webinars@firestorm.com. You can check us out at our website at firestorm.com, and you can review all of the Firestorm services. As you may know, since January 1st, we have expanded our reach and are very excited to be able to provide to you a full 360-degree crisis and risk solution suite of services. We do work with all types of crisis and risks that may occur in your organization, and you do have access via your participation in this webinar that is underwritten by our good friends at RenWeb for our Crisis Stop program. If you're in a crisis occurs of any type, anything from brand reputation, financial irregularity, a school closing, or an issue of violence, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via our 1-800 number, and our crisis team will connect you with someone who can assist. You can access our professional service solutions, our intelligence solutions, our People Solutions division, headed by Cheyenne Marling. And if you are looking for someone specifically in the business continuity or risk management, DRIT field, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through Cheyenne. She has a terrific practice and is exceptionally well known in the industry and has more than 60,000 contacts that she can help you find the right person for your organization, or you may be looking to explore new opportunities yourself. Our analytical solutions are international in scope and include 6 major studies per year based on input from those 60,000 professionals and cover everything from crisis impact management to benchmarking and compensation reports. Our IT resiliency study is currently open for participation, and those who participate do receive a full complimentary report. And our crisis event management impact study was just released, and it's available for purchase on our website. If you're interested, let us know. And last, our security solutions are second to none and are led by former senior officers and agents in the United States Secret Service, and are some of the best and can help you with everything from baking security solutions into the blueprint of your schools or organizations to helping you with active shooter training and keeping your teams prepared and ready. So thanks for joining us. Today's session is sponsored by RenWeb. RenWeb is a fax company, and they are known as the most powerful integrated solution that connects administration, the classroom, and the home. So for your schools, if you are a RenWeb school, thank you. We appreciate your joining us today. I am Karen Masulo, and today I want to talk to you as a follow-up to the last 3 sessions we've had. So the first session of this year, we talked about assessing risk, understanding your threats and vulnerabilities. Then we simulated in February a mini crisis, and we gave you 15 minutes to walk through what would happen if you had some level of a mini crisis, where we used the #MeToo hashtag to indicate that a student or an employee or someone within your organization was reporting that there was some type of abuse, but it was anonymous. In our 3rd month, we talked about what communications would we respond to within that specific crisis. And today we're going to step back and say, what if the crisis were different? What if we could get there before it became a crisis? So we're going to be talking specifically about instances of violence today, and we're going to be talking about identifying potential behaviors of concern before they actually become a weapon in your facilities, on your campus, or used against someone who is in whose charge you protect. So we're going to look at the key components of an effective school violence prevention program. The first, I think we have some of today, and that's leadership support. You wouldn't be on this call if it wasn't important to you. You're a leader in your organization, and you want to make sure that you can communicate the message effectively to others. This is something that Firestorm has been focused on since we were called in to respond to the shootings at Virginia Tech. We have worked with Arapahoe and Littleton schools and many, many others. For us, it's always been at the forefront of what we do. For many, however, school violence is an escalating issue because they read about it in the news. And sadly, the duration of a violent episode stays in the public eye for about 20 days, even though the aftermath of violence carries on for years and years and years, if not decades. So we know that your leadership support in making sure that this stays a front and center issue is critically important to making sure we're able as a nation to address the challenges. We do so by starting at the ground level, grassroots, with good policies and procedures within our own organizations. Those need to cover our weapons policies, anti-bullying and harassment policies, your due diligence in performing background checks at date of hire and annually thereafter, assuring you have physical security, again, baked into the blueprint of your building, and we can assist you with that. And then we want to make sure that you have an effective behavioral risk threat assessment program implemented. BRSA, as we call our behavioral risk threat assessment program, is something that we have worked on over a period of about 6.5, 7 years, if not longer. We've consulted with experts from all walks of the behavioral spectrum industry, from psychologists to the FBI to the Secret Service, and we know that we have a best-of-class behavioral risk stress assessment program, but it doesn't do any good without you. We also know there are programs out there such as Alice, and we like to think of Bertha as Alice's big sister. Alice is great. It tells you what to do if there's an active shooter. We also have some approaches, a little bit different, but we work with the folks at Alice. So if you're in Alice school, we fit right in. As a matter of fact, you can go to our website at firestorm.com, and there are some videos on the front page of the website. One is an animated video that talks about Bertha. There are also some trainings that we did for an organization that we did along with Alice. You'll see Susie Laughlin, and you'll also see Jim Satterfield. And those sessions work very well right along with Alice. And then we have, we want to make sure that you have in place, once we've got that behavioral risk piece put in, a great emergency and incident response plan. If you need that reviewed, if you want to reach out to us to do that, please do so at webinars@firestorm.com, and we'll help you move your program forward. Because all we want to do today, if we can, is help you move your program forward even one more step. So how do we stop the madness? Well, we asked you. We said, are you concerned about these incidences of violence? And 92% of you said you were either really concerned or you're pretty concerned. Now, there are a couple of people out there in denial. They said, no, not going to happen. But almost all of you said, I'm a realist, I know it could, so I want to be prepared. And it's getting better. We're making progress. We also asked you if you knew how to anonymously report a behavior of concern in your own workplace or your own school. And 91% of you said yes. That is a significant improvement from last year when we asked this question. That means more of you are educating, more of you are training, and more of you are putting in anonymous reporting capabilities. So good on you. We also asked, my organization has a designated team that reviews behaviors of concern. This number is up as well. We're up to 74%. Good job. That means you're actually forming teams of people who are trained to document and respond to behaviors of concern. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what specifically are those behaviors of concern. We're going to get a little weedy about those behaviors because I really want you to be thinking of those in your employ, those in your building, students, and others, and recognize that behaviors of concern are not solely confined to student populations. They can be your employees, parents. If you recall, a couple of years ago in Colorado, there was a smoke bomb incident that was designed to cause panic. That was designed by the father of a student who then colluded with his son, his student's son, to make it happen. So we need to look at the whole spectrum of possible people that are interacting with our facilities and then look at the possible behaviors that send up either subtle or obvious red flags. And the reason we do that is because almost every disaster, every incident of school or workplace violence, and acts of terrorism were preceded by warning signals. The only instance that I've seen since I've been involved in this work, and today happens to be my 7-year anniversary, but I've been in this type of field for a very long time. It's the Las Vegas shooting, and that was very different. So let's go with the majority and assume that we're going to be able to see at least some level of threatening behavior or a behavior of concern. Now, what is the difference between a threatening behavior and a behavior of concern? Well, threatening behavior is clear. Threatening behavior says, I am going to beat you up. I am going to harm you in some way. I am bullying you now, or I am being bullied now. I am saying horrible things about you and threatening you on the internet and through social media, or I am the victim of someone doing that to me. And remember, don't ever discount that specific form of bullying. We've seen the aftermath of self-harm because of it and harm to others. And remember, you know, back in the day, you could go home and you were in your own neighborhood and maybe you could escape the bullying that happened at school. Today, that bullying follows students into their homes, into their living rooms, into their bedrooms, and is their constant companion via their phones, their apps, WhatsApp, Snapchat, etc. Fighting, violence, stalking, cyber stalking, destruction of property, these are all clear threatening behaviors. So there are 4 kinds of threatening behavior that's very clear. Direct, conditional, veiled, and indirect. Direct is a specific threat. I'm going to kick your butt outside of the school today. Conditional is if I don't get what I want. If you don't raise my grade, I'm going to do something bad to you. Or it could be the reverse. I'll give you a good grade if you do something for me. There's veiled. There's implied threat, but it doesn't specifically threaten. You know, I'd hate to see something happen to your car if I don't get the grade I want. And then there are indirect threats. They lack specificity, but we know it's a threat. And of course, if we see a weapon at school, where you're constantly saying, if you see something, say something. I was working with a school a couple of years ago, and I saw an image doing a social media monitoring exercise where a student was showing another student a gun in his jacket, and the student took a picture of it. And I couldn't tell if it was real or not. I wasn't sure, so I did some digging into the profile of the person who posted the image, and he had posted his grade card or his grade sheet a few months prior, and on that grade sheet, it had named a specific instructor in his calculus class. And so I did a web search on that instructor who taught calculus, and I came up with one school on the East Coast. And I contacted the principal of that school, and I told him what I'd seen. He knew exactly who it was as soon as I said it. And he was very disappointed because they had just done a significant exercise in the school on if you see something, say something. And not only had this one kid posted the image, but 35 others had liked and reshared the image. And that was a grave disappointment to him. Later, he contacted me, and in addition to asking if we would come and we would speak to the student body and talk a little bit about what we do, but he also indicated that shortly after we alerted him to the issue, the very first calls he received were from parents who saw it on social media and were frightened and concerned. And he wasn't blindsided. He was prepared. He was able to say, we looked at it, we checked it out, we know what it is, and everyone is safe. So having that little bit of anticipated or predictive intelligence on the front end, That open conversation really helped him identify the issue. And he realized the training that they did on if you see something, say something, didn't take. Our CEO, Jim Satterfield, says quite often, take a moment and go and interview your newest hire, or maybe the newest student in your school, or the newest employee in your team, and ask them if they know what to do in a named crisis. You can say in a violence event or in a thunderstorm, any crisis. And the manner in which they will respond will indicate to you whether your onboarding training is effective. Do people know what to do when a potential incident of violence occurs on your property? We think they do because we do a lot of training around this. But if we look at the instance at YouTube recently, I was frankly really surprised because one of the people interviewed said after the fire drill, everyone sort of calmly evacuated because that's what they thought it was. They thought it was a drill. And as they walked outside, he saw the shooter with a gun in her hand, her arms outstretched, saying, "Go ahead, take me." And what protocol is it that evacuates people that close to an active shooting situation? So something broke down somewhere. There's no fault. It's just that if we test and test consistently, we will find the flaws and the gaps in our programs. And that was a big one. Now, when we go back to talk about behaviors of concern, we know that some are clear, right? We've talked about that. In addition to some of those direct threats we talked about, there are other indicators. Comments about suicide. Comments about suicide are never a joke, even if the person puts a joking emoji right after it. If you go on Instagram, look up your school name and just see what people are talking about, I think you'll be surprised. In addition to all the great things that we do, all the good works of our schools, our great sports and scholastic achievements, there are some disturbing things as well, and many of them, for some reason, Instagram sort of attracts self-harm sorts of images, anorexia, cutting behaviors, excuse me, burning and other self-harm behaviors. So be aware of that. Additionally, some other red flags might be intimidating comments about hurting someone else. They might also include destroying property, the person's or someone else's, and rage, fits of rage. I want to tell you that recently we did an analysis of language in anticipation of working with artificial intelligence in order to surface threats. There's some groundbreaking work we're working on right now. And we looked at the language of shooters. We looked at the language of those who commit acts of violence in the school setting. And the word rage was used almost consistently by all those who had posted on social media or posted manifestos or left writing or diaries of some kind. There are other indications, behaviors of concern, that are not quite as clear as some of those other direct sorts of threats. And we've seen this with a number of instances. A fascination with weapons. If you looked at the shooter from Parkland in Florida, there was post after post with knives, guns, other weapons, ninja-type outfits, and bandanas over his face and holding all of these weapons. It's really quite frightening. A history of depression. And with depression may come self-medication. And with self-medication may come non-prescribed drug interaction that can fuel violence or psychosis. There may also be abuse of some type in the home. And there may be observed behaviors that indicate major change, withdrawing from school activities or friends or teammates or other activities. So let's look at what we see when we start to implement a behavioral snapshot. Working within a program like a behavioral risk threat assessment, we need to categorize some of these behaviors. So let's look at general behaviors that may indicate there is a need to increase documentation and watchfulness. That is, does the person have a history of discipline problems? You know, in a school environment, we have a unique opportunity to work with a student or a teacher, but with our students for an extended period of time. In a private school setting, we may have students with us from pre-K all the way through the end of their high school years. We generally have students for anywhere from 4 to 8 years within our facilities. So we have the ability to document and observe the history of an individual. The challenges with that documentation, and that's what we're talking about here in a moment, is how we go about doing that in an organized way. You may have seen something when a student was in the 9th grade, and someone else may have seen something when the student was in the 10th grade, and those two pieces of information never came together. They were never kept in the same place, and so we don't get the opportunity to put the pieces of the puzzle together to create a pattern of behavior. Today, we can. We want to know if this person has had access to, has threatened to use, is fascinated by firearms or other weapons. Do they take criticism poorly? They just can't let something go. They're a right fighter. There has been a dramatic change in school performance. A once highly successful, academically achieving child suddenly goes a different direction. Or if it's someone in our employ, a teacher or someone else on our school grounds, has their work performance drastically and suddenly changed? Are they suddenly having a real challenge with relationships? In work relationships, school relationships, relationships with peers, relationships with teachers. Is the person preoccupied with policies and procedures? As a matter of fact, not only are they preoccupied with policies and procedures, but they believe the policy or procedure was written specifically because of them or because of something they did. Has this person sent any concerning emails or text messages or phone calls? I don't even know if kids make phone calls anymore. Has there been any kind of direct or indirect threatening messaging? Could be on social media. Do you know? Are you monitoring? Are there other statements, drawings, or writings that have violent themes? Many years ago, I was dealing with someone who we were watching as a behavior of concern. And the behavior that was being demonstrated was that the child had filled a notebook in about 5 days, how many pages in a notebook? I don't even know, just a regular notebook with drawings of guns and bombs, and they were small drawings. This was a significant effort, and it was quite frightening. And we were able to intervene and get the child help, but it was a startling piece of work, and it was just drawings over and over again with exceptionally violent themes. Has this person had a history of violence, anger, or aggressive behavior? Have there been reported anger, or sexual harassment or intimidation? Do we know of drug use, alcohol use? Excuse me. And has there been a change in hygiene? Once tidy or very fastidious person suddenly becomes disheveled. And that may be indicative of something other than care. We had a situation where someone was observed to really be degrading in their personal hygiene, and the reason was because they've lost their home. Because of a gambling problem, they'd lost their home and were forced to be sleeping in their car. They were exceptionally depressed. And what's the reality of all of these behaviors of concern? Well, this is the reality. These are two brothers that were at Parkland. One was in a classroom and realized his younger brother, was upstairs right above him. This is a messaging to each other, and one of them says, "My teacher died." We don't want our students to have to experience this type of trauma. We also look for other types of behaviors of concern when it comes to someone's social or their peer group. Are they suddenly holding grudges? So there was a group of friends, they always hung around together, and now suddenly one has a very significant grudge against the other one. Are they acting erratically, and others are expressing fear and concern? Dangerous, risk-taking, high risk-taking behavior. Are they suddenly intolerant of differences, racial, religious? Are they withdrawing socially? Had they been gregarious at one time and are now withdrawn? Are they being victimized or bullied? Are they identifying with violent groups, with hate groups? Can we see that in social media? Do we know? Are we monitoring? When we monitor, we're only monitoring that which is publicly posted. We're not looking at anything private. No violation of rights. Are they making angry or threatening statements on social media? Are they name-calling? Are they trying to hide behind that wall of anonymity that social media creates? And is there a history of poor response to limit setting, to rules and regulations? Is there an adverse response to authority? This, my friends, happened yesterday. Beaver Ridge School in Georgia. And the principal wrote, it appears that a student did show a weapon that they had brought to school to other students. He didn't threaten anyone, and he didn't state any intention to hurt anyone, but he brought a gun to school. In this climate, today, in today's environment, a student brought a gun to school. Thank goodness he showed it to other people, and thank goodness those people said something. And again, this happened yesterday. When we also look at behaviors, after we've looked at general behaviors and the social and the peer group, we look at the family. Is there suspected or confirmed abuse in the home? Has there been a change in status? Has there been a divorce, a custody issue, a financial issue? Have there been multiple losses? We had an employee of an organization who was going through a significant time and a behavior of concern was noted, and this poor person had lost a spouse, a parent, a sibling, and a best friend in a period of like 8 months. This is the reality when we don't spot behaviors of concern. Who spotted this behavior of concern? This is the Parkland shooter, Nicholas Cruz. He posted a message on YouTube, and this is the message. It was in response to a YouTube video, and he wrote, "I'm going to be a professional school shooter." The person who owns this account reported it to the FBI. What a great citizen that is. Now, what happened to it from there, we need to improve. But someone did see something and someone did say something. And he then reports that the FBI did come to visit him today about this. We next move into the psychological characteristics of behaviors of concern. And many of you have school psychologists on staff all the time, specifically for these areas: paranoid thoughts, feelings of persecution, delusional thinking, inappropriate or poor coping skills, excessive feelings of isolation or being alone, hopelessness, expressed feelings of rejection by others or shame. Conversely, they may have a sense of entitlement. Everything belongs to and is about them. Are they having suicide or expressed homicidal thoughts? Is there a diagnosed or undiagnosed mood disorder? Are they preoccupied with weaponry and violent fantasy or ideation of violent fantasy? Is there a pattern of either under-controlled or over-controlled anger? A blank affect is just as concerning as inappropriate rage. And is there a feeling of being bullied or picked on or persecuted? Why is everybody always after me? We bring this up specifically because, again, we've seen these patterns. When you see the post, the social media post of Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland, Florida shooter, he mentions Elliot Rodger will not be forgotten. Do you know who Elliot Rodger is? If you don't, you should. Elliot Rodger left a manuscript, a manifesto. He also left 10 hours of YouTube videos explaining why he was about to get in his car with a weapon and randomly shoot sorority girls on the campus of UCLA. He was entitled. He was persecuted. He was all of the things that we just discussed. There are urgent types of behaviors of concern as well. These are behaviors we observe that require immediate response. A weapon, a direct threat of violence. I am going to kill you. Constant fighting with classmates, peers, or family. That could have resulted in a serious injury. I saw a YouTube video the other day of two kids fighting and one grabbed a shovel and very nearly killed the other. Destruction of property. Again, severe rage over something minor. Stalking, cyber-stalking, self-injury. Threats of or attempted suicide. And importantly, is suspended or expelled and then seen on premise. When I was discussing this and previous situations with one of the co-architects of this program, Wendy Ruffcorn, and we were talking about Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland school shooter, Wendy said, you know, the shame of it is they probably were monitoring his behavior while he was a student, but they stopped once he was expelled. And she said that is the key time when they should have started. Just as when we see disgruntled employees return to the work or the school place, we see the same thing with students who've been suspended or expelled. If they feel that they were targeted, wrongly accused, or if they were treated unjustly. In 2015, there was a shooting at an Oregon college. And in the words of the shooter, ever since I arrived in this world, I have been under siege from it, under attack from morons and idiots. My whole life has been one lonely enterprise, one loss after another. Here I am, 26, no friends, no job, no girlfriend, a virgin. A long time ago, I realized that society likes to deny people like me these things. People who are elite, people who stand with the gods. And the people he was referring who stand with the gods were Elliot Rodger, Vester Flanagan, the Columbine shooters, Adam Lanza, and from the most infamous, at Virginia Tech, the shooter who we responded to. There are protective factors that we can bring into play. These keep someone, if we find out early enough, if we identify a behavior of concern, we can call on personal attachments, personal friendships. We can call on interest outside of school and nurture those interests. We can help that person understand and respect and work through authority. We can teach positive coping skills and the ability to take responsibility for actions, but only if we spot incidences early enough and find out. And the reality is, the reason you're on this call today is because it's working. People are saying, I see a problem, something's going on. I need to alert you to something. And we are stopping weapons from coming on to school grounds. Do you see this at the headline in the paper? Probably not, because it doesn't sell digital advertising. But it's happening every day. We want you to report incidences. And we're working on creating a better system where people do respond and respond appropriately to threats. We want you in partnership to stop an act of violence. We want you to be able to see that there is a student, a child, a coworker, a peer, your boss in trouble that needs help. Someone who's had an argument with a teacher. Let's keep track of that. If our student gets upset with some classmates and makes a threat, let's add that to the record. The more we document, the more we connect the dots, the faster and better we can create an environment where that weapon doesn't come into the school. The program we have is a process that's intended to assist in these key 4 pieces: identifying, assessing, managing, and monitoring. Through the support of the University of Alabama, we're able to create awareness training, support you with an intelligence network, encourage and refer you to anonymous reporting, help you understand how to create a central repository, and implement the behavioral risk threat assessment or BRSA process by supporting your BRSA license through training for your behavioral management team on the University of Alabama website. The training is virtual, it's on demand, you access it via the University of Alabama's learning platform, and you will receive a certificate of completion for your team from the university. The program includes training simulations, a central library for you to keep all of these pieces and parts of information, and from our side, in addition to the information that we've created over 6 years, you'll receive the support of a BRSA coach. You'll have unlimited assistance with behavioral risk screening through a virtual assistant and our team to help you. So where do you start? Remember, train all staff on behaviors of concern. Make sure you have a behavioral management team named and in place. Have some sort of open source intelligence that includes face-to-face communications, anonymous reporting, and overviews and observation of social, traditional, and new media. Have a central repository then, where all of this information is confidentially and securely stored, and then have a detailed process for developing action plans when a situation does occur. I want to thank you very much again for taking the time to join me today. If you look in your GoToWebinar widget area, there are 3 handouts. Bill Baker is going to leave the webinar open for just a moment or 2 once we actually end so that you can download those documents. Open up the GoToWebinar dashboard widget, look under handouts, and you will see there are a couple of handouts there. One of those is how to spot the warning signs. We encourage you to register for part 2 of this session for next month, which will be the actual what to do if someone is actively on your property with a weapon. And we also ask you to please let us know if you have any questions or concerns via webinars@firestorm.com. I am Karen Masulo. I thank Bill Baker for joining us and moderating today, and we both thank you and RenWeb for helping us present today's presentation on behaviors of concern. Thank you very much for your attention. This will end our session for today. Have a great day.